Hello, everyone. I'm Barbara Scafidio, editor at Skift Meetings. I want to welcome you to today's podcast, Rethinking Next Gen Events. And who better to share his suggestions than our event guru, Edward Parati of Edward Parati Events and Experiences, who has been re-engineering meetings for younger generation audiences at numerous Fortune 200 companies for years. A few housekeeping notes before we get started. Don't forget to follow or subscribe to this podcast whenever you're listening or watching. And if you're enjoying the show, please do rate us 5 stars or leave us a positive review so we can spread the word about Skift Meetings podcast. And if you do have a moment, why not share the link with a friend or a colleague? Now let's get right into it.
Hey there, it's Seth Borko, the head of Skift Research, and I've got a brand new report that I want to share with you today. It's called our State of Travel 2024 report. It's perhaps the single most comprehensive report we do every year, and the best part, it's free to download right now. We have 350 plus insights in this report with pretty much a chart for basically any sector. Do you need a chart on hotels? We've got that. A chart on airlines? We've got it. A chart on consumer behavior? Guess what? We've got that too. I really appreciate if you check out our State of Travel report. You can download it now by going to skift.com/state of travel with dashes between every word. So that's skift.com/state-of-travel. Download the report, check it out, and let me know what you think. I hope you enjoy.
So now I want to welcome Edward Parati. So nice to have you here.
It is so good to be here. I am awake. I've had my coffee. I am dressed. I'm ready to go.
Good. I look forward to the next 45 minutes to an hour with you, getting lots of great advice. So the first step for everyone is certainly marketing. And Edward, I'd love to speak with you about what pre-event marketing strategies you found really build excitement, especially when it comes to social media's role.
I think first off, every event and every messaging, every time we do an event, it's different. There are different words, there are different audiences, there are different targets. All those things need to be taken into account. I don't want to just make a general assumption that if we're targeting a younger audience, that younger audience is also homogenized across the board when we do things. So first and foremost is we need to do our homework. We need to do our homework on who is our targeted audience from a younger generation. Are they fresh out of college? Are they just entering the workforce? Are they predominantly women? Are they right? I mean, is really kind of knowing who they are first and who the target is, and then develop it from there. A lot of it just needs to be energy based, meaning even if you do a small print item, it needs to exude some energy. It needs to not feel flat. It needs to be inviting. It needs to read and even with social media, everything needs to be very authentic and personal so that they feel like you are talking directly to them and in order to get their attention versus this. And I hate using the word, but it really does seem to work when we're talking about this in general or just meetings and events, is the homogenized conference or event collateral that goes out there it's boring and it's safe. It screams volumes of what leadership also thinks. So if you want that younger audience to think, to really be engaged, because we have our age, we have a hard time keeping up with all the noise coming at us from social media to print to, our peers and our leaders. So we're already filtering.
Right. So just to clarify, since the audience doesn't know what your age is, we'll just say something like a senior level member of the industry.
You know what? No, I will. My husband has been drilling it in me. I'm gonna own my number. I just turned 59 last month.
Awesome.
So, yes, and I am having trauma over my birthday next year, but I'm already planning it. So, and it won't be a funeral for all my friends out there thinking that we're going to do a wake. But no, it really is about how do you cut through all that other noise and make them think you are talking directly to them for them to pause and take it in and think that's where I need to be
It's
versus,
almost so
oh, go
sorry.
please.
Emails could almost be, I don't want to use the word insulting, but in a way, if they're non-creative and they're boring, it gives people the message that there's no creativity, or there's little creativity perhaps at the event itself. What do you
Well,
think about
I no, I agree because emails today have I mean, when we go home and we go through our mailbox, do we just quickly handle like we're dealing cards, right? We don't look. We're looking for a bill or a check, or maybe a personal card. Email today has become that,
Yeah, yeah,
right?
and
I mean,
actually, we don't want the bill, we just want the check.
well, we definitely don't want the bill, but based off of what I am with my cards, sometimes I have to deal with it. But email, unless you find a way to make that email extremely personal, and I don't mean put the name in there.
Right,
I mean it's addressed to Jane, and it references Jane's love of dogs
right,
and
right,
blah blah blah, right? So that there are key moments that connect with that person, which goes back to the homework. Build your database and your knowledge base of your client demographics. Now, granted, there are going to be some that you are going to have to just do a bold cast a wide net to get attendance kind of programs, but email's not always the answer. The social
right,
media is the answer. There
right.
is, yes, we need to take into account from a global perspective, right? Privacy laws and all those fun things. Here in the States, we kind of, thank you, politics, have learned to get away with a lot of things when it comes to people's devices and things like that. But it's being very mindful and very targeted, I think is the one key takeaway of
Yeah,
just and not multiple. Do it once, do it right, and then follow up.
right,
They also because multiples are going to polarize them.
right. It's so spammy. So here's the thing I'm seeing though. I am not seeing planners of a certain age embracing the social media channels that we know these younger generations are living on. And I'm talking TikTok, I'm talking Instagram even. I'm not sure what Threads even is yet. I just loaded it on my phone and just can't make it out. But it's pretty essential, isn't it, that they do
Yes.
because they're going to continue to turn to their Instagram feed. You
Well,
know,
and that's also part of the planners either working internally or working externally, right? I mean, if you're outsourcing your event with a third party or if you have an in-house team, whatever, having somebody specifically on your events team that is social media driven, and I don't mean just during the event. You
right,
need a social media guru on the front end. Have them be part of the marketing strategy. Have them give them a real voice at the table so that when you are in there and your CMO, who, is the button down red tie former IBM, is talking about an email blast that they are comfortable enough saying that's not going to resonate
right.
and then be able to take the lead. The planner doesn't have to have all the answers. They just have to be open enough to surround themselves with people who are smarter than them, who are going to elevate the business because at the end of the day, that's what the goal is.
And for younger generations, video isn't a luxury. It's essential,
A
isn't it?
tool. It's a tool,
Right,
right? Because we have and COVID pushed it over the edge, but we have an audience now that is completely, I mean, even my in-laws are used to it, but used to talking to people and connecting to people on a screen.
right,
So what are we afraid of?
right.
And it does go back to, and when I say we, I'm gonna here comes my big spoon in the big pot, and I'm gonna start stirring, but the we is our generation of planner. our generation of executive. We we have forgotten. We have completely forgotten that we were them.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
You know, when I started coming up in the ranks, I had amazing, amazing role models. I had Marta Hayden. And they were, now we talk about those individuals and everybody references them as old school because they were really the groundbreakers, doing the events. It wasn't just the EAs doing it anymore. They were professionals, they were strategic thinkers, they were all that. And then you get individuals like me in my early 20s kind of knocking at the door and sitting there saying, well, that doesn't make any sense. That doesn't make any sense. And we, because of how we were raised, kind of fell in line with what they were doing. This generation has been raised with I can stir it. I can shake things up. I don't like that. I'm going to tell you.
Why are you doing it that way?
Correct.
Yes, they question, absolutely question
And that's not a bad
everything.
thing.
Yeah,
That is
no, it's
so
not.
not a bad thing.
Yeah, it can be annoying for some people who don't want to really ask themselves that question, but I agree with you. I want to just put in a plug. As you know, we are Skift is about to embark on our big New York event, the Skift Global Forum, and we also have the Skift Meetings Forum. And one of the observations I made about our pre-event marketing is that we are doing the typical posts where you say I will be attending, and it's kind of a fixed image, and people are spreading that all over social media, which is great. But what really captivated me was the individual videos. At one meeting, the team meeting, we were asked to just get out our iPhones, shoot a quick 30-second 1 minute video, and people got so creative. They, one was on, I think it was a subway platform, another one was up in the Catskill Mountains, another one was on a beach. And those to me are and I'm sure if we were to look, the engagement would be much stronger because they're
Yep.
personal calls to action versus this fixed
Well,
Canva slide that we post on LinkedIn, or
even
not us, but I mean everyone. It's just the way that we promote events is to do it that way, but it doesn't have to be that way.
well, and it's I have to a little not a disclaimer, but every time I do a podcast or a TV spot, you should see the email that comes back, and a lot of it is very blunt, so to speak, because I don't have a problem saying certain things. I'm getting all over LinkedIn. I'm getting a lot of the notifications now of people attending IMEX, and they're in that little thing that I'm a harmonizer or I'm an energizer. Of course, my response is, "Well, I'm a pot stirrer." They don't have a category for that. Um, but why our industry doesn't even do it? So how are we supposed
Right.
to push this on our clients when how much more thought process and spend when we know events like an IMEX generate a obscene amount of revenue that they don't put into these marketing tools that could easily be instead of I can still do the survey where it does say me that I'm a harmonizer or I'm a this or I'm a that, but then instead of uploading a picture, it uploads me live saying I'm going to IMAX. According to the survey, I'm a harmonizer and this is why.
I think that's fabulous. Well, they probably will do what you just said next year. So
But I mean that
terrific idea.
but it is kind of, I mean, even just for general conferences, for an incentive trip, right? I mean, for all these things, it's like, let's get people to start making it's no longer the static picture. I love the person on the subway, right? If that's their life and they're constantly doing that commute and that's the time they have, it's like, I'm so and so, yeah, sitting on the A train, but
Mhm.
I'm on my way to go to X conference to go see so and so. Are you going to be there?
Oh, I
Is
love it.
right is to just it's all about energy. And I think that's the biggest takeaway is personalization and also energy. and the audience gives more energy than flat static marketing.
Terrific, terrific. So we do have other things to talk
Yes.
about. So I'm going to move us along. I thought that we could discuss this umbrella topic as we move through the steps of planning an event. So the next step I had, or I think would be your next step, is site selection. And we were speaking before about the shift or the need perhaps for a shift in hotel and destination choices to appeal to this generation. For one thing, luxury brands are less of a factor that, than they were for the older generations, for this generation, certainly destination choice. But uh, one possible change on the incentive side might be that incentive organizers are going to have to start using multiple hotels to cater to the different tastes. How do you, one question would be, how do you feel about some of these chains that are actually geared toward this demographic, like an AC or a Moxie, for example?
Well, first off, I love Moxie.
Hmm.
I will stay at Moxie's when I'm traveling on my own. I
Okay.
the Moxies in New York are my favorite properties because I'm not in my room. So do I need this grand space? Even if I'm at a resort, these grand spacious rooms, they're nice to have. And everyone considers them a perk. But if I'm really in that room, I'm not experience what I'm supposed to be experiencing. I'm not at my sessions, or am I not working? So, the room size are smaller, but they're so it goes once again, it's energy. There is an energetic feel when you go into these kind of properties that just picks you up. I don't care what age you are. You just feel something which you don't feel in the big boxes.
Absolutely true.
Um,
Absolutely.
and it is, there is a catch 22 because those smaller properties don't have all the event space,
Right.
right? So you can't really pull things in house. Yes, there are some ACs. You've got our lifestyle brands like the One Hotel. You've got those that have space and so forth, but they're definitely designed for the guest experience versus the event experience.
They're a lot sexier for a younger for all travelers, but definitely for a younger
But I
traveler.
mean, even from the luxury, as example, last night I flew in from Hawaii because I'm doing a program at Turtle Bay, which has now been reflagged as a Ritz Carlton.
Right.
My hope among hopes is that Ritz does some little tweaks from a branding perspective, but that they leave the hotel alone because that hotel screamed Hawaii. It screamed North Shore. It felt luxury, but it felt attainable luxury. It was approachable. It was relaxed energy. It was so not what people and this generation, when you say Ritz Carlton, would think. So it is all about, once again, your data. Everything is about data. What is your audience like? What is your messaging? But even with cities, right? Cities are a huge thing that if I want to appeal to a younger audience, it doesn't necessarily mean Vegas is the right answer. Doesn't mean Orlando is the right answer. Doesn't mean these big convention, sorry, the Nashvilles. It doesn't mean that.
Or you seek out the properties. When I was a meeting planner, we used an incredible property in Orlando, the Lake Nona Wave Hotel. Cutting edge tech. The everything was run by an iPad. The windows changed um, coverings according to the temp outside. It was filled with beautiful art and really creative furnishings. They had a very cool rooftop bar. It was such a hit. So I see here what you're saying, and I think Matt, that maybe when you use those large convention cities, you seek out those boutiquey, interesting properties within them. I wanted to bring up, people might say, Midwest. Do people, do younger folks want to be in some of these large Midwest cities? Leave it at that. I will tell you an experience we had in Columbus that I had no idea what the city really held for us. This was during PCMA last January, year ago January, and they were our hosts were expert at creating the most exciting event in Columbus. They had ambassadors, Columbus ambassadors. They were people who either grew up there or had some connection. And the first night we were greeted by a YouTuber. His name is Coyote Peterson. And he's this really interesting guy who has a show that I didn't even know about, but people of a younger age certainly did. He's a rock star, and he risks his life out in the wilderness with snakes and all kinds of wild animals. And as we were with him having cocktails, people were coming up to him, younger people, and they were wanted their picture with him. And I thought, wow, this is such a great way to kick off an event to have someone that exciting with us. And the whole event flowed from there. They showed us the arts in Columbus, beautiful art spaces, galleries where you could do events. You could do candle making. You could do all these interesting activities that I just never really, a distillery, for example, just never tied the two together that Columbus in January could offer that kind of experience. So it's also up to the planner to create that experience, right?
100,
Yeah,
100%. But it's the planner's job. I'm just
right,
going to just say it. It's the planner's job to open up their eyes to the possibilities,
right,
right? Because it is their job to open up their leadership eyes to the possibilities. So they themselves have to uncross their arms and quit being so damn arrogant about, well, we're just going here and there's non-negotiable because, Resorts World in Vegas takes care of me. I'm sorry. I am not the one who needs to be worried about my attendees and my numbers and all of that is what in the business is what needs to be worried about. There are amazing second tier cities that haven't gone, they're large, right? But they haven't gone overly commercial. They haven't sold their proverbial soul to the Starbucks on every corner, to the Seattle. They may not call themselves a second tier city. I'm going to call them one, but I'm calling them one with extreme love because there are so many amazing things about Seattle. San Antonio, like San Antonio is a phenomenal place for events. And yes, you have your big boxes and you've got that convention center that is just ginormous. But then you also have little compounds now that are being built, like the Pearl, that I could easily bring my group and that, and as they're building like properties around this little community, that I could turn it into a campus. But it's just the coolest thing with their outdoor farmers markets and their things that this generation would connect with on a downtime from their event.
right. That's a huge part of it. And we're going to get into the foodie part a little later, but I agree with you. So, and that's where you look to your CVB, you look to your DMCs, and you make that
100
happen.
100%.
Right.
I actually tend to, especially now, more than I ever did in the past, is I'm communicating more with DMCs and the CVBs before I engage the hotels.
Interesting.
I
Okay.
try and figure out the locations and educate myself on the location so I can have some passion behind it when I'm presenting them. But if the city has the vibe, sometimes the property doesn't need to really have as much because once again, it's like a cruise ship, right? How often are you in the room to need a suite on a cruise? If you're in that room, what the hell are you paying for? Right? Get out. You're there to see the world. You're there to experience the event. You're in your room to sleep and to shower and to go to the restroom.
Well, this is a nice segue to the next area I thought we could speak about it. It's actually about meeting rooms. But you had caught my attention at one point when you said, well, maybe we don't even need to be in a building to hold sessions. Why don't we just take these room setups and blow them up? And so I'd love to talk to you about some success stories you've had around setups, but also just getting out of hotel ballrooms altogether.
Are you tired of sifting through endless resumes looking for the perfect candidate to fill a leadership opening? Skift Executive Search can help. We have an insider view of the travel industry and can leverage both our expertise and connections to find your next rockstar hire. To learn more, visit skift.com/exec-search or email us at execsearch@skift.com.
Now, I have to share this with there is a cost involved,
Right.
right? So it could work sometimes, it won't work other times, but it's the mindset, the planner mindset that we know regardless, inside, outside, foyer, wherever the heck we're actually going to meet, we're going to make it different. It will be a different experience in a classroom setup or theater setup. Get to that mindset, then play with your budget. Do you have ancillary? Because, of course, when we go outside, we're talking about moving things that are already built into the bones of a building that we have to build and facilitate a lot of times to then there's a cost, of course, associated with that. With that get out of jail free card out there, yes, why are you in a ballroom when you're in a spectacular location? Once again, because it's fresh in my mind, went to um, got in the car to go look at an activity on the North Shore 2 days ago, and there's a ranch, and I'm going to pronounce it wrong, so I'm not going to pronounce it, but they sit on 4,000 acres
Wow.
and tons of activities, tons of things to do. But there is this one particular spot, and there is a house that's up there with this beautiful porch and these beautiful greens overlooking the farm. They call it a garden. It's a farm in the Waimea Valley. So you have those mountains as your backdrop, and it was already wired. Why wouldn't I do an 80-person business meeting for an incentive there? Why
Right.
wouldn't I? It's completely private. They can talk about anything proprietary that they want, and I can jump them to a CSR from that perspective, or I can have them do activities, but it's getting them out, right? It's not, and why do I have to put them at tables and chairs? You know, you're in a location that has got Seattle as an example. That's a little boho. Why not actually just take those big fluffy boho pillows,
Hmm.
drop 400 of those bad boys on the floor in your ballroom, right? You're gonna, no matter what you do, and don't say people will have a hard time with the chairs, not you, Barbara, but just the audience. You are always going to have your naysayers. You're always going to have your complainers. You're always going to have that no matter what you do. The room's too cold. The room's too hot. The chair's too small. The chair doesn't go back. You're always going to have that. So do not let in your mind those one or two voices push you back to traditional.
And accommodate the people who are not going to want to sit on the pillows.
We would do that anyways, right? Anybody from an ADA perspective or anybody with needs, we are going to accommodate them. Fortunately or unfortunately, I'm going to say unfortunately, because the way our lives are, we don't have a lot of those individuals. But, you know, if we do happen to have the complainer, I would have no problem pulling out a banquet chair and sitting them, right?
Right.
Fine. But you want that moment where an audience walks into wherever you're going to be and do a slight little inhale,
Absolutely. I've seen it at the meetings I planned
right?
around really creative sets with loungy furniture and sofas. And sometimes they even get out their camera
Yep.
because it's so different.
Oh,
And then you know you hit it. Yeah.
the amount of pictures I have seen over the years of just people posting my setups. And
Yep.
and for good or bad, on a social perspective, I don't tag companies. I just, when I post something, there's never people, there's never companies. It's always just the look and the style because I'm very mindful of who I work for at that point. But having them, sometimes walk into a room and you have that clutch the pearl moment.
That's a funny one.
And I mean, even when we were together recently in Las Vegas, right? And
Right.
it's funny to see people will go, but they're slightly uncomfortable when they go. And in about a half hour into it, you start seeing people on the sofa sitting back and their arm kind of going over the rest and
Mhm.
turning themselves into, you could picture them at home watching Netflix,
Right,
right?
that's what you want them to look at, like, at your
100%, right? It's
yeah,
they're
they're engaged.
they're totally engaged. And there is a event in Montreal called C2.
Absolutely, yeah.
It's so hard to get into the sessions. I'm not gonna lie on that one because they're so good and they're so popular. The last one I went to, I actually didn't go to the sessions. I spent the entire time walking around crashing them to watch the setups, to watch the experience part, and to see people's faces and how they reacted to them, which kind of solidified in my mind that I'm going to present as much as I want to present. Yes, the end decision is with the client,
Right.
but it's my job to show them the possibilities. It's my job to give them what they need, not per se what they want. And really, it's again, I'm going to keep drilling this down. It's data. Do your homework. Look at what's new and cutting edge. Where you and I are kind of as much as we loved it. Okay, been there, done it with the living room setup. I'm
Mhm.
bored. I don't want to do it again. I want to find something different. I want to
Right.
I we did a 600-person dinner outside on pallet tables on the ground with pillows.
Nice.
And it was just, everybody was disarmed. There wasn't It was a formal dinner. The food was done in a unique creative way, but everybody in that situation through the course of the evening becomes disarmed because they
That's
don't
the goal.
know what to expect. That
That's the
everybody
goal.
Right? Everybody's a little uncomfortable getting comfortable on these pillows and all these things and realizing that they're outside and all those but what comes back from the surveys and numbers, you can't argue.
Right. Right, and then you see the younger attendees posting, so you know you're on the right track. Even that evening, you know you're on the right track, which I think that's the other thing is just the instantaneous,
Yes.
um, feedback that you do get from that generation. It tells you, where you are throughout your meeting, really.
Give them the tools, right? Give them those
Right,
hashtags, give them all those things so that you
right,
can track in real time. But
right.
yes, 100 you will get real-time response.
True.
Positive, you will get negative, but at least you're learning, right? It means you won't do certain things again, or you'll put on steroids this again.
And if they're engaged, the organizers see, your clients seeing it.
Yes.
And frankly, if they're not, you do need to know that too. So,
Yep.
but I sincerely doubt with what you're describing that that would be the case. I do want to move on to F&B because you do win your attendees' hearts with food and beverage. And one thing that is blowing up right now, the Skift Meetings just did a story. We did a story on um, mocktail basically mocktail replacements. So what else can you offer that is non-alcoholic and not so sweet? And people are just loving this story. There's a real trend toward that's just not letting up toward people who don't either they're not drinkers or they want to control their drinking, and a lot of those are younger, health conscious attendees. What else are you seeing that as far as food and beverage that is geared to, that's exciting and it's geared toward people who are willing to try things and take risks and not kind of settled in their approach to F&B?
Well, I'm whether I'm the right one or wrong one, that's to ask that question because I love pushing a chef. I love 100% transparency when it comes to budgets and chefs. I will give him my line by line budget on the food for all the meals that I need him to create and tell him flat out, first off, your food costs better than I do. So rob Peter to pay Paul. This is the number I need to stay in. Here's this. So we level set right off the bat and then explain to him once again with the data with the event experience. It's like we're doing this. This is what I want them to feel when they see the location, when they sit at the table. This is what we're going for. Now you come to me and tell me what you want to do that's going to enhance it. There is not one chef I've ever met who doesn't love being creative.
Absolutely.
I
My
mean, that's why they are chefs. They resort, hotel, catering chefs are constantly rinse and repeating their menus. Boring. It's absolutely boring. So when somebody does something and they do it, they go crazy. So, but from a trend, I'm gonna say I don't like following trends except for right now, the mocktail or the non-alcoholic alcoholic drinks, right? I have had amazing Manhattans and old fashions that are non-alcoholic that are using these products that are built with the right natural pieces to give it the bitterness, to give it the sweetness. As a diabetic, I watch. I would rather burn my sugar carb on a dessert than on a drink. So let's kind of play with that. The biggest one is portion.
Okay.
Is play with not going so much on the traditional fillet with the side of the starch and all right those the traditional plates that we normally do, traditional buffets, is personalize it again. We did, and I need to give a shout out to Streamline on this. Years ago, they dragged me kicking and screaming in Vegas when it came to lunch setups. That it was going to be a whole personalized lunch setup for 7,000 people. That was actually that snicker was exactly. I mean, I was a lot more louder, or I was louder than you were, but it was amazing that people would walk into the floor. They were given a lunch bag, and there was sandwich stations and Buddha bowls and salads and all, once again, data, all portioned out to minimize food waste, but you chose your path. And it wasn't the big deli sandwich, it was the half size. It wasn't the right. I mean, it it really became this. I don't need to do the big buffets anymore. I don't need to do the big plated dinners anymore. I I love just doing tasting menus for a formal dinner, right?
Right.
And you can offer them to they can choose whether or not you want it paired with wine, or do you want it paired with this, or do you want it paired with that, to make it more personal. But the idea of the smaller portions, the taste, the experiences, give them multiple experiences versus one.
Right. And something they haven't seen.
Yep.
I recently heard about a water sommelier, and I thought, isn't that interesting? Hadn't heard, have been in the industry quite a while and have not heard of that. I think anything immersive where you make your own charcuterie board, you make your own smoothie, and they give you a shot of something in it. Make your own quinoa bowl. That just screams to me younger generation, fun, interesting food, and they're involved in it. They're not just serving themselves something on a plate, you
We
know?
had we had a salad bar once. Well, not once. You always have greens, but the way it was presented, the kitchen took planter boxes, obviously lined them so they're healthy and they're clean. They made an absolute obscene amount of super, super dark rye bread and then pulverized it, put it in the planter boxes as the dirt. And then the whole carrots, the radishes, the pre portioned sets of lettuce, all of that was actually in the planter box. So you went through to give a farm experience. You went through instead of just grabbing, you would pick out did you want butter? Did you want romaine? Right? But it was planted in there. The bread kind of becomes the crouton, but it was this I'm picking my own salad. As silly as it sounds, it was a huge hit. People
Right.
were talking about that. And then the chef then took all the crumbs and everything from the planters and created the next day this beautiful dark rye dessert using that as the base.
How interesting.
So
Yeah.
was it phenomenal five-star food? No. but the experience was so unique of something so simple and so repetitive. It was just a different take on it. And people loved it. Like I don't want all the I'm not a big person with all the crud on my salads. So like I went through and I pulled a couple carrots and I pulled a couple radishes and I did a little bit of lettuce and they were the whole carrots. They weren't everything was cut up. And I just did that with a little vinaigrette. And I personally was the happiest a camper because that's how I would love my vegetables.
Right,
You know,
right,
other people were making big piles of it, which is their prerogative.
right.
But you chose your path.
I think that's a great segue into another topic that you hinted at earlier when you were talking about Turtle Bay and the authentic North Shore experience. And authenticity has never been more important to younger meeting attendees to actually go somewhere um, and not have that authentic local experience. They don't want any part of that. They want to experience a local distillery or see, maybe visit with a local grower or maker or bring those people to them in the form of a gifting experience with all locally handcrafted gifts, maybe at the opening night of marketplace or something like that. Can you talk to that? Because that is such a different world from the meeting of old, you know?
So I can with complete arrogance, humbleness, whatever you want to say, I have never ever gone down the path of I'll just say it. I hate the overpriced gifting.
Yeah.
I and the overpriced gifting and then, love to all my marketing people, but branding all over it. Sorry, no. If the gift, I don't care if it's a candle. If the gift is thoughtful enough, you don't need to stick a logo on it first off because they're going to remember who gave it to them.
Yeah.
So, really, does having a Google logo on a candle in my house help them from a marketing perspective? Who the hell's gonna see it?
You're not even gonna put it out.
I'm not
Yeah.
putting it out. I'll turn it around and light it, right?
Exactly.
Um,
Facing the wall.
but going even if it's a convention and you're in a second tier city, going local, having somebody local come in and explain for 10 minutes where the heck they are and being able to tie that in to we're here at this location or we're doing these gifts or we're doing this based off of the location and the location ties back to the business reasons and not so much because we're growing here but the location's values match with the company values. This matches with this, right? You're telling the story, but from a gifting perspective, why wouldn't you go local? Why wouldn't you and there are some locations where you might not think, but if I'm in St. Louis, why the heck would I not give somebody a locally made mom and pop shop rub, a spice rub that was made right there by somebody,
Right.
not a St. Louis conglomerate company, but a small house. There was and it's out all over the place, but this was years ago in New Orleans at the French Market. I was walking through and there was this kiosk set up and they were making hot sauce and they were pouring it in Coke bottles. And then they were capping them because they didn't have the mason jars or regular bottles. And it was the best hot sauce.
Right.
I love hot sauce. Well, guess what? They're now slap your mama.
Oh,
And it's that to me would have been how much more New Orleans could I possibly be than one, give them hot sauce, two, help this company or help this family start up and go by purchasing it and being able to tell that story. And it's also damn good product that you could only get there.
right.
Right.
That's
And we're talking how many years later, and I still buy, I buy Slap Your Mama. I love it.
Right, and you still remember where you found it, and that's exactly what we're getting at here. We're not just talking about there's a mission behind everything that we're discussing, and the mission is ultimately to cut through all the clutter so that people do have that memory of that event, and in turn, the sponsor, the way and the big one, the way it made them feel, right? But then they take that learning with them because they that feeling was pervasive throughout their entire experience. You know, they were pumped up about the event. They were not like waiting for the last day to go home. I could probably spend another hour with you, but we do we do need to wrap this up soon. I audience, if you're enjoying this, shoot us a note because we can perhaps do a part two and talk about things like music and entertainment and CSR and team building and tours and activities and how they all can be geared toward a younger audience. So if you want to hear more, you put a note in there and let us know. But why don't we wrap with wellness? Because everyone is talking about it. So many people are trying to integrate it into their lives when they travel for meetings. And I know things that we've done when I was a meeting planner, like yoga on the beach, used to be exceptional. And now it's an expectation. And so, what do you have to say about that? Because I think it's an important part of certainly every people of the people of every age, but absolutely the younger set.
So I'm either going to get a hate email or a love email from our buddies like David Stevens and so forth on this one. So wellness, yes. I fully believe that wellness rolls into my entire sustainability conversation. That sustainability for me is not green, right? Those are completely different conversations. For me, sustainability has always been about people, right? The next generation, the next, why are the kids leaving Hawaii kind of thing, right? Well, there's nothing there for them. Well, then how do we create things that are going to keep them there? So when it comes to wellness, people are, and we see it with our food, right? We see it with I'm gluten, I'm celiac, I'm right. Everybody's very specific with their dietaries. You need to look at wellness from an event perspective as a broad range of offerings. And that does include drinking
Right.
because some people find calming and just being themselves and being relaxed in an environment where they would have one cocktail, right? It's not wellness doesn't necessarily always mean yoga. It doesn't always it means it is mindfulness. It is getting them in tune with themselves and what they need in order for them to succeed during the event, which we need them to succeed. And I know that sounds kind of crunchy a little bit, but I get very my back gets really straight when people go down the path talking wellness, and wellness is physical
A
activities.
fun run, right, or a hike or something like that. Instead
Mindfulness
of
is huge,
right,
right?
right.
It is very much, a sound bath, as crunchy as that is. You may get 2 people.
Oh, we've used those and absolutely healing singing bowls.
Yes.
Bringing in local people again. You're employing
Yes.
local people for your event to show off their art, their specialty.
But it is but think of wellness and wellness offerings the same exact as you would do with your food and beverage.
Right,
You're gonna call out your glutens, you're gonna call out your vegans, your vegetarians, you have that's kind of ingrained in our mind when it comes to F&B, and as we're planning, we're always thinking about that now. And we ask the question, why don't we ask a wellness question on the registration site?
right,
What is
right.
your what is if you have to relax, if you need to take a break, what do you personally need? I guarantee you're gonna get some people, depending on the event, asking for a prayer room, asking for a meditation room. You will because it's also dropped off the radar. You'll get people reminding you that you need a mother's room, right? I mean, or I want yoga. And it's like, and then you can put yoga AM, PM. What do you like? Sunrise, sunset. Doesn't mean you have to do them all. Well, you should be doing a mother's room. You should be doing a prayer room regardless.
Absolutely
But
right.
all the other ones, then you can make an informed decision based off of the request and then go back to your location and say, what do you do really, really well and different? And who do you have that could actually lead these things? It's not about forcing everyone to do everything at the same time. I know that, many planners like the yoga. I'm not going to be at that beach at 5 o'clock in the morning.
Well, that's the other thing is, especially if you're doing parties the night before, which would be attended by, a lot of, I mean, I don't want to generalize, but a lot of the younger people are the ones who are going to stay out till 2, 3 in the morning,
But
right?
it's,
And then you've
but
got
it is
yoga and nobody's there.
and then
Right.
the other trick is to not make people feel guilty for not participating, right?
No,
A
absolutely.
sunrise yoga is great for people to get in tune and get their day started. Me personally, quiet time with my cup of coffee, staring out at the window as the sun rises does the same thing because it is my form of
Right.
meditation. It is
Meditation.
my wellness routine. So wellness is personalized. It needs to be personal for what the attendee experience that I want to have. Our job is to figure out how to afford it, how to make sure that we're touching the biggest group of people. You can't do everything for everybody, but give enough offerings where somebody is going to find something that they can connect with.
Well, Edward, you have given our audience so much to think about when it comes to gearing our events to the younger generations. You are expert at it. You've put so much thought into it. And I think it's time that we all put this level of thought into uh, generations that are fast becoming the largest percentage of our attendees. It's tricky running meetings with 5 generations of people in the room, but it's here, and we need to address it, and we need to come up with some of these creative solutions. So I just want to thank you so much for being a part of our podcast today. Everyone, this is Edward Parati Events and Experiences, and hope to have you back to do that part 2.
I would love that. Thank you for
So much.
having me. And like I said, for our peers out there, don't be hesitant or scared. If you don't know an answer, there's plenty of us who are willing to help.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Hey there, if you're listening to us on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, or wherever you listen to your podcasts, please make sure to subscribe, rate us 5 stars, or leave us a positive review. That really helps us get out the word about the Skift Meetings podcast and make sure that we can continue to bring you this podcast every week absolutely free of charge. If you're watching on YouTube, make sure to subscribe to the Skift channel and hit the notification bell to find out whenever a new video drops.
Want to reach the most influential audience in travel? SkiftX helps brands solve problems, create unforgettable moments, and communicate big ideas through content, research, and event activations. Learn more about how we can help you at skiftx.com.